Hey there, this is Mr. Ed. He is here to teach us about the past tense suffix ed. A suffix is just a letter or a group of letters that are added to the end of a word. It changes the meaning of the word. So here we have the word play, and we add the suffix ed, and now we have played. The suffix ed tells us that something already happened. It could have happened a minute ago or 100 years ago, but it happened in the past. That's why it's called past tense. But Mr. Ed has a little surprise for us. I don't know if you heard, but the suffix ed can make 3 different distinct sounds. Ed can make the sound d, as in dog. It can also make the sound t, as in tub. And it can also make the sound I and the sound d, as in did. That one is actually 2 sounds. If this feels a little tricky to you, Mr. Ed has a story. It's just 3 sentences long, but it'll help you remember the sounds that the suffix ed makes. Mr. Ed opened his shop. Opened. O-p-e-n-d. Opened. Do you hear the d at the end there? Mr. Ed baked his cupcakes. The word baked is, when you break it down, b-a-k-t. Baked. Do you hear the t at the end? Mr. Ed tasted his cupcakes. And if we take tasted, really listen for the sounds that that the suffix makes at the end. T, a, s, t, id, tasted. Do you hear that? It's the suffix, but it really is 2 sounds. Id, tasted. Here's a set of words where the suffix ed makes the d sound. Listen for the final d sound. Cleaned, closed, filled, moved. Use the d sound when the base word ends with a buzzing or voiced sound. For instance, let's take the base word move. If I hold out that final sound, move. Do you hear my voice is buzzing a bit? That's a voiced sound. So if the final sound is voiced, we'll use the d sound for our suffix ed. Here's another list. Listen for the t sound in these words. Brushed, asked, passed, stopped. We use the t sound when the final sound in the base word ends with a quiet or unvoiced sound. Let's take the base word kiss. If I hold that last sound, kiss, there's no buzzing. This is called a quiet or unvoiced sound. And so then the suffix ed will make the t sound. Now this final one, id. Really listen for id in these words. This is the one that's most tricky for folks when they're first learning. Needed, landed, waited, tested. The id is 2 sounds, and it actually adds a whole nother syllable. So we will use the id, those 2 sounds, when the base word ends with a t or a d. Do you see in need? It ended with the d sound, so we needed to add id for the suffix ed. And the word wait, do you hear the t sound at the end? So again, if it ends in it with a t or a d, then we will add id for our suffix ed. Have no fear. I know this can be a little confusing, especially when you're first learning. Here's an easy way to remember. The most common sound that the suffix ed will make will be the d sound. So if in doubt, start there and see how the word sounds. 55 to 65% of the time, the suffix ed is going to make the d sound as in open. The second most common sound is t. 30 to 40% of the time, the suffix ed will make the t sound like in baked. And then id. That one is the most tricky, and also it is the least common. You're not going to hear it nearly as often. Less than 10% of the time, the suffix ed will make the id sound, like tasted. So remember those three words. Mr. Ed opened his bakery, he baked the cupcakes, and then he tasted the cupcakes. Those are the three sounds that Mr. Ed makes. Thanks for stopping by.